if you just confirm that name is correct. If not, if you give me your full name and then tell me who you're representing here today, whether you're the applicant, owner, or someone else connected to the project, or a neighboring property owner, or someone else from the community. So we will start with Ray Campagna.
That is correct. I am the applicant on behalf of the Benny Fund.
Okay, great. Welcome. And Carolyn Evans.
Sorry, that's correct. Yes, I'm Carolyn Evans with Cincinnati Animal Care.
Okay. Welcome. And I have a Tom here. Tom, you're muted. Tom, if you could just unmute for me. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes, Tom Malloy. Ray's was working with Ray as his architect on the project.
Okay. Okay. Great. And you said your last name is Malloy. Is that
Malloy? Yes.
M-A-L-L-O-Y?
Molloy. Yes.
Okay. Great. Welcome.
Thank you.
John Brugan.
I'm John Brugan with Hamilton County Administration.
Okay. Welcome. And I see we have Elena and Steve Past.
That's
Welcome,
correct.
guys.
Yep, thank you.
Neighboring property owners, correct? Okay, great. And Greg Haskett.
Yeah, correct. Greg Haskett, also with Cincinnati Animal Care.
Okay, great. Welcome. See, we have Trey Sheldon here from the City Planning Department. Welcome, Trey.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Okay, and then Mike Badoclet. Are you with us, Mike? We also have.
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Yeah. So sorry, I'm in my car, so I thought I'd make it back, but I'm a Salvation Army board member. Salvation Army is leasing the vacant property for the improvements, and so I'm representing the Salvation Army.
Okay, great. Welcome. I understand you're in your car. If you do want to provide some testimony or comments later, I'll just ask that you pull over or get parked and turn on your camera. Until then, feel free to observe.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And then I have a G. Ingles or Inglis. Are you with us? So if you could unmute. Okay. All right. So on the applicant owner side, are we expecting anyone else to join us before we get started?
No, not that I.
Okay. Okay, great. I'm going to read through our hearing script. This is just going to cover the procedure for the hearing, and then we'll begin. So this is the September 24th, 2025 session of this zoning hearing examiner docket. Again, my name is David Sturkey. I'm the zoning hearing examiner for the city. I'll be presiding over the hearing. Trying to let someone in here just really quickly. Okay. G. Inglis, are you with us?
Yes, hi. This is Grant Inglis, adjacent homeowner. I had submitted a written statement at the beginning of the week, thinking I wasn't going to be able to make this call, but I am available.
Okay, great. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. So the case before us today is case number ZH20250090. That is, just double check this address. That is 4220 Dane Avenue. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and any other parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the zoning hearing examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any other party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing. Of course, unless of course someone has submitted testimony in writing prior to this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. For our purposes here today, I'll allow everyone connected to the project, either from Cincinnati Animal Care, Salvation Army, Hamilton County, or the applicant or the architect to provide testimony at that time. One of you can speak, all of you can speak. It's really up to you how you want to orient your presentation. Typically, I hear background on the project, what exactly it is you're proposing, the zoning relief that's required, in order to complete the project, and then of course, why you think that zoning relief is appropriate in this circumstance. I'll then move to the public, and they will have an opportunity to speak after the applicant has presented its case. I will hear from Trey Sheldon to add any testimony in addition to his staff report that he has prepared for this application. In the event that any party testifies or offers an argument in opposition to this application, the applicant will have an opportunity to respond or rebut that testimony that was offered in opposition. And then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make any closing statements. After all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. In the event of any technical difficulties with the Zoom technology, I'll do my best to troubleshoot those issues as we go, but to the extent there's some defect that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with this hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay. The last thing I need to do here is just swear in all of our witnesses. So if you intend on providing any testimony here today, making any comments, asking any questions, really doing anything other than just strictly observing, then the zoning code requires that I swear you in. So I'm going to collectively do that with everyone right now that intends on testifying. So if all of those people could please take themselves off of mute, I'll need you to raise your right hand and to answer out loud. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yep.
Yes.
Great, thanks. Okay, let's see. Looks like we have someone trying to join again. All right, who's going to be taking the lead here on the presentation for the applicant?
It'll be myself.
Okay, great.
Yes, I can. We have a
Okay.
lot of players in this one.
Sure, the floor is yours.
Sure.
And feel
So
free, if you'd like to share your screen, you can do that if you'd like.
yeah, let me.
Up to you though.
Yeah, it might be best if I do that, just so we can see a rendering of what we're proposing to do here. Share. Let's do desktop. How about that? Share. Can you all see that rendering?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay, great. So this is essentially what we're proposing to put at the vacant lot that today is at 4220 Dane. As you may recall, at 4210 Dane, Hamilton County has built essentially a ancillary or secondary animal shelter that today houses dogs as well as cats. But today, as you also may remember, there is no outdoor enrichment space whatsoever at this property for those animals. And the Benny Fund, which I am a founder of, we work with county animal shelters to help develop their outdoor enrichment space in order to help the environment for the animals, promote adoption, and obviously improve the quality of health and overall status of those animals in the shelter. And we believe that this is a necessary space use. The 4220 piece of land is actually owned by the Salvation Army. It is leased by the Humane Society, by Cincinnati Animal Care. And the Benny Fund would be the folks doing the installation of what you see here in front of you. Our installation crews, both for fencing, turf, landscaping, etc., would be doing this on behalf of Cincinnati Animal Care. And we obviously have, because there is use issues as it relates to the building at 4210 Dane, we obviously have those same accessory use issues related to this piece of property as we're trying to use it. We also have to create buffer zone between this property and obviously the residential properties, and that's what you see us intending to do here, both with our fencing as well as our landscaping and the like. But that is the intent of what we're looking to do at the space, and we do obviously need approval to do so. I will let Carolyn speak a little bit more specifically about operations at the 4210 facility and kind of the necessity for this space and why it's needed for the animals. And then I can answer more specifically about the structure and construction of what we have going on here.
Okay, and Mr. Companion, just to set the stage here, so you're asking for 3 pieces of zoning relief, right? Conditional use
Correct.
approval for an exterior area devoted to animals that exceeds the 2,500 square foot limit.
Correct.
And what you're asking, the total square footage of this project is 4,600 square feet?
Yes, of that entire lot. Yes, correct.
Okay. And also conditional use approval to allow exterior exercise areas and pens for an animal service facility in an MG district. So those sort of overlap a little bit.
They do.
And then the special exception is the buffer yard. So the zoning
Correct.
code requires a 35-foot buffer yard between this proposed project and the adjacent residential district, which is across the street, correct?
Correct. And we're short of that by approximately 8 feet.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear before we moved on.
I appreciate it.
Sure.
Carolyn, do you want to speak a little bit about the intent of use of the yards and then also support that you've seen in North Side specifically?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I wanted to start. Thank you for the opportunity for me to speak today on behalf of Cincinnati Animal Care. In my role as executive director, I'm responsible not only for the animals in our care, but also ensuring that our staff have a safe place to work and it's a good experience for our visitors. I will say that I've been waiting for this day, or the shelter's been waiting for this day for a long time, because the truth is the animals at the shelter right now are really suffering and without having this appropriate space. And without having that space, it also greatly it does, and it has hindered our ability to be a good neighbor without having appropriate space for our animals. So today we're seeking approval for this space that can be used for play yards for our shelter dogs to be used for daily play groups. And I want to talk a little bit about that. The daily play groups are supervised play yard time with a number of dogs, allowing them to be in a yard together, running, playing, interacting with each other, and really burning energy in a safe and a quiet manner. This activity, I think, will benefit the neighborhood that we're in, because having these play groups will actually minimize barking, minimize the need for dozens of people walking animals through the neighborhood, and increase safety for our staff, volunteers, and our public. When we talk about caring about animals, caring about dogs in particular, they're social animals. And just like people, they need interaction, they need stimulation, and they need the ability to express natural behaviors. And across the country, we see best practices in animal sheltering is really having the use of this type of an outdoor space for play yards, because play yards are proven to play groups are proven to reduce stress, improve dog behaviors, and help our dogs get adopted faster, which is something that Ray mentioned already. But play groups mean that animals have less stress. It provides a better environment and ultimately less noise in the neighborhood. A lot of times people think that dogs in playgroups or dogs outside are noisy, and the reality is that playgroups themselves are not noisy. The assumption that putting a lot of animals together in a yard means chaos and nonstop barking is just not a fact. In reality, a well-run playgroup monitored by a professionally trained supervisor means that the yards are quiet and the kennels are quiet as well. And there's a number of reasons for that. The first is that barking is the result of frustration when dogs are cooped up. Secondly, dogs in playgroups are focused on playing. They're not focused on barking. When dogs are engaged with one another, they're using their energy to run and chase and wrestle and explore instead of just barking out of frustration and boredom and stress. So what we see in these playgroups is that far more than using vocalization as a way to interact, dogs are using body language, which is a natural form of communication for them. So they're play bowing and they're tail wagging and they're posturing and they're chasing each other. And barking is just one small element of communication for dogs. And I actually, when I share a bit more information with you, what I'd like to do is share a short video that shows that actually dogs in playgroups, so you can see the type of interaction and the type of noise levels that can be expected from a playgroup. But again, well, like I said, because we have staff that are specifically trained in playgroups, one of their jobs is to keep the energy balanced and avoid overexcitement, which can prevent any sort of noisy escalation in dogs. So when we see an animal shelter and we look at kennels full of just echoes with really barking dogs, the play yards are the solution. It's a healthy and controlled way for us to minimize noise in dogs. The shelter environment itself is what tends to make dogs noisy. So having this opportunity for us to give dogs a natural and a healthy way to burn some of their energy is going to have a better impact for overall noise in the shelter and also outside of the shelter. It's also, in addition to resulting in calmer dogs, it results in safer dogs. Kennel frustration can lead to more than just barking. Sometimes that behavior can escalate with habitually being overexcited. It can lead to making handling difficult. It can lead to like jumpy and barky behavior, which makes it more difficult for our staff and even our staff, our volunteers, and even just potential adopters walking in and interacting with our dogs. So it's good for dogs. It's good for people. And we really have a responsibility to provide this type of enrichment for the dogs in our care. It's not just about dogs having fun. It's really dog playgroups are a proven science-backed enrichment that provides animal welfare, which in turn will reduce impact on the neighborhood. Having dogs in this concentrated space where we can have a much higher ratio of people, dogs to people, is going to minimize traffic of people walking through the neighborhood with one-on-one dog walks. So if I can, I would like to share a video. It's about a 3-minute video. And in this video, you're going to hear dogs barking. You're going to hear that audio. But I think it's important to note that that audio that you're hearing primarily is the dogs that are barking in the shelter. As I said, you're going to hear dogs barking in shelter because that's when they're stressed and they're reacting. They're trying to get attention. But the barking that you're hearing is not coming from the playgroup. So I'm going to try to share my screen and see if I can run that video for you, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Could you tell me more about the source of the video? And
I'm sorry, say that again.
could you tell me more about the source of the video? Like who?
It's a video that we created of the dog groups in our
Okay.
in our shelter.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So you understand we have playgroups and we have these outdoor yards at the actual Hamilton County Animal Shelter on Coleraine Avenue. But we do not have these same setups at the 4210 Dane facility.
Okay.
Okay, so can you see my screen?
I can. Yep.
Okay, here it is. Here's the video. Now I'm going to stop it after a second. I just want to make sure that you can hear it okay.
Hi, my name's Alexis. I'm the Senior Behavior and Wellness Coordinator.
Everybody can hear it? Okay.
I oversee our playgroup and enrichment programs. I've been here since 2020. Back before we had playgroups, and I've kind of helped implement the playgroup program throughout that time. Prior to us having playgroup, we had a lot of behavior concerns on site, a lot of leash biting, a lot of jumpy and mallee dogs overall. We also had a lot of fence fighting in the kennel runs. Since implementing playgroup, we've seen a decrease in those behaviors. We have very few dogs who are severe deterioration risk, when before that was just kind of an everyday normal to see dogs spinning and hyperactive in the kennels and just like injuring themselves from just being so cold all the time. We love playgroups because our dogs are able to run free in the yard and get to a lot more satiation that they're not able to get on leash walks. A lot of our dogs face a lot of confinement in the kennels, and the confinement on leash and playgroups are times just kind of relax and be dogs.
Hi, my name is Joe. I'm part of the behavior team here at Cincinnati Animal Care. I think playgroup is important or impactful because we have some dogs that aren't as well socialized with people. So when we get them out into a play yard with other dogs, they can socialize with other people a lot more easily and have fun with other dogs.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm a volunteer. I've been doing this for about 3 years with care, and I love it. And I really love the playgroup. I started off as a dog walker. This fulfills me more because these dogs get to be dogs. They get to show you more about their personality, and I love that. Like right now, there's 12 dogs in the yard in 20 minutes instead of one dog on a walk.
Hi, I'm Ilya, and I'm the clinic animal care lead over here at CAC. Impact of playgroup and establishment. I find that our noise levels in our isolation space really decrease, and the room gets much calmer, more peaceful energy when I'm able to provide consistent playgroups throughout the day, morning and or evening, depending on our time schedule here in clinic. It can get very chaotic, but oh my gosh, the dramatic difference that it makes, especially afternoon playgroups. When I have all the dogs out for the evening, I tend to pull my rough, rowdy, more energetic guys out first, get all their energy out, send them back in to get their dinner. Do the same thing with my gentle dainties. Same process of going back in, and my kennels are quiet tonight.
Hi, I'm Deborah. I'm the interim behavior training manager at Cincinnati Animal Care. I want to leave you with this.
Our playgroups are not just dogs having fun, they reduce shelter stress, they create a quieter shelter environment while they improve their quality of life. Dogs who play outside are calmer and quieter inside. They rest more deeply, show better to adopters, and find homes faster. Our team has been trained by Dogs Playing for Life, a national program that's helped hundreds of shelters, including ours, improve the well-being of dogs through play. Since I joined Cincinnati Animal Care in 2021, I've seen firsthand the incredible transformation playgroups have made, not just in the dogs, but in the entire shelter. Playgroups benefit not just the dogs, but our staff, volunteers, the fosters, and the adopters. Happier dogs mean a happier community and more lives saved.
Okay, do I have to stop screen sharing? Yeah.
I can do it, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So yeah, again, in summary, not only are playgroups not noisy activities inherently, but having these playgroups and having this outlet for dogs is going to result in just quieter indoor space as well, quieter shelter overall, and less foot traffic in the neighborhood of people walking through the neighborhood.
Okay,
Thanks.
thanks, Carolyn.
I just want to make a few
could I-
closing comments, if I could, just about the space. And after seeing that video, I think it's important. You'll see in that video those play yards and all our mud and wood chips and the like. We will actually be using canine turf behind that fence you see there in all of our play yards. Our fencing, everything is really top of the line. So this facility really is, in my opinion, the best way, as someone who's built a lot of these play yards across the country, to do it, both from a hygiene standpoint, also from an actual aesthetic appearance standpoint for our community. And obviously having this, as people discredit, kind of park-like setting out front, we hope also helps us. I know there's been a little bit of concern about the benches. We absolutely could remove the benches. The benches, as you know, aren't a zoning requirement. We are trying to create more of an open space for the community. We certainly could just landscape it completely and keep it bench-free, or do whatever would obviously appeal to the community in that regard. And then obviously we have our privacy vinyl fence there in front to really keep all of what we're doing with the dogs really safe and secure from the public.
Okay, thanks. I'm gonna ask a few follow-up questions before we move forward. So what is the capacity of the outdoor area?
So
And kind of as a follow-up to that is, or in line with that is what's the maximum amount of dogs that will be out there at any one time?
Exactly. Yeah, we've agreed to keep that to a number of 20 or less. So that's really what we're shooting for, is anything less than that. You have essentially 3 yards out there, but they're smaller yards, and then we have, I believe it's I do have 4, yeah, 4 holding pens for dogs as well.
Okay, and so when they're in the exercise area, will they be within one of those 3 sort of fenced in pens,
or they would be on a leash between the pens, obviously, as they're going from one to the next.
Got it. Okay. Is this 7 days a week throughout the day? Could you give me more of the timing or the amount of time they'll actually be out there?
Yeah, I mean, we could potentially operate 7 days a week. It depends on how many trained playgroup supervisors that we have. But ideally, we want to get every dog out every day for their health and well-being and enrichment. It would be it tends to happen earlier in the day. We start the day with the playgroups and assessments outside, and they taper off throughout the day, but it really depends on the population, the number of animals that are in the shelter at any one time. I think it's also important, Ray mentioned something about holding pens. I just want to be clear that we're not ever going to be holding animals out there. There would never be animals out there unsupervised. They would be out there either for purposes of playgroups, which is typically what we're doing in the morning, and assessments. And then we would use this space later in the afternoon once we open to the public after 1 p.m. A lot of times people will bring their own animal if they want to adopt an animal, to make sure that the animals are compatible. And we do supervised introductions of dogs. So we need to have an enclosed space to do that as well. So a lot of the afternoon activity is just 1 or 2 dogs meeting at any one time, or just a small group of animals that are out there for some sort of training versus playgroup. So most of the playgroup activity is happening right in the morning till right about lunchtime.
Okay, but, well, so, but you would like to be able to use that throughout the entire day, 7 days a week, is that right?
We operate 7 days a week, yes. And were you asking about the playgroup activity or just using the yard activity?
Well, the times that animals could be out in that yard, I assume
Till
is what you're
6
getting
Yeah,
at.
till
Yes,
6
yes.
p.m. Till 5:30
Okay.
p.m. essentially.
Okay, so from sunrise till 5 p.m. I am trying to pin you down here a little bit.
Yeah, and then I would say,
What are the hours of operation for that outdoor?
well, I would say till close, 6 p.m.
Okay,
But there would not be playgroup activity at that time. That would be when we have people coming in and wanting to meet a dog. So a lot of times a family may just have the dog out in the yard by itself, so it's not on a leash and they can interact with the dog. Sometimes they will bring their own dog to meet a dog. So there's maybe 2 dogs in a yard together, but the activity later in the day looks very different than the playgroup activity.
Right.
okay.
And Carolyn,
Gotcha.
what time do your folks come in the morning?
9.
Right. So
9.
So 9 to 6.
So you won't see dogs out at there at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. To that effect. Yeah.
Okay, and you won't see dogs out there at night, I assume?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, is there any sort of consistent number of dogs that are in the facility in general? I think we might have covered this in the last hearing we had a few months ago, but you said you want to get all the dogs out every day, or that's your goal. Is there like an average amount of dogs that are typically in that facility at any given time?
Well, we've been at code red, which means we're at overcapacity in both locations. That facility has the ability to hold 142 dogs.
Okay.
So I would guess that at any one time we would have probably 130 to 150. And right now we are getting the dogs out. They're just walking on a leash and walking through the neighborhood one-on-one.
Okay.
So we have to get the dogs out just for the humane care of the animals at the shelter, but we're just wanting to do it in a much more efficient way, in a way that actually is more enriching for the dogs and produces better results for the dogs and also for the shelter and for the people in the community with the playgroup activity that we're talking about in the morning. And then the afternoon is more transactional with adoptions.
Okay, got it. So just doing some back of the envelope math here. If the maximum you'll have out at any time is 20 dogs. You're at 140 now. That would mean that likely there would be dogs out there for most of the day, every day.
True.
Okay.
But right now your census is not that high at that location, correct?
No, not right now, but we have the capacity to get there.
The capacity for that.
And when dogs are in playgroup, a dog in a 20-minute playgroup is akin to a dog on an hour and a half, 2-hour walk. The dogs are not out there for hours and hours. They're out there for 20, 25 minutes and they're tired out. And then they go back to their kennels, calmer, quieter, content, less stressed.
Okay.
Because they've had that really high level energy burn with other animals, with dogs.
Okay, great. So I wanted to ask a little bit more about the details, and some of this is sort of some more technical questions. I'm not sure who's the best to answer this, but a simple one is just how tall is the fence that's going to be facing Dane?
6 foot.
Okay, that's 6 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And as I look at the rendering of the space, it looks like it's going to be, tucked into these, your facility on one side, another building in the rear, and the Salvation Army, what is that, to the north, and then the fence. So I'm wondering if anyone can talk to me about what impact that's going to have on the acoustics. I really don't know, but is that something that's going to sort of bounce off and amplify any sound that there is there? Is there anyone that can speak about what impact the orientation here is going to have on the acoustics for the neighborhood?
Tom might be able to speak to it better. It is a lot of why we've put some of the landscaping towards the back, towards these CMU wall buildings to absorb some of that in the event that we do have it. Once again, back to Carolyn's point, it doesn't get as loud in these environments as you think because of what we're doing with the animals. But in general, I would say that's the case. But Tom, you might have some thoughts about it too, acoustically.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, as a dog owner myself, just anecdotally, I appreciate, a dog that's been able to go outside, get some exercise. It's definitely a calmer dog. And, it's not, I've been to a lot of dog parks. It's not just constant barking all the time, but you have to anticipate that there will be some noise because of this. And if
Sure.
it's most of the day, every day, that can add up for someone who's living close by, right? And can feel like it's more than it is. So that's why I asked that question. So Tom, can you talk at all about how the acoustics are going to work here, or if there's any measures that can soften that?
We haven't really, an acoustician would really be able to answer that better than I. And we've done those type of studies, but they're typically more on the interior of spaces than exterior. However, if I could simulate, communities, well, let's say highways are built, communities are built next to them, usually in that order. And then third comes in a sound wall, which is a concrete barrier. And that's kind of how they use to mitigate that type of, road noise. The fence that we have is probably good in the nature that I think any reverberation should be within the pen. And I would think then we do have some softer spaces, only in the sense that we do have landscaping that does help, mitigate some ambient noises and such. The turf, as Ray had spoke of, is also, it's, what's there now is Cincinnati clay with some grass that's growing. The turf that we're talking about is actually fairly deep. It's got granular, drainage ability to it, and it's got like an astroturf type facing to it. It's all very porous by design. So I'm thinking much the way like carpet has a real tendency to quiet sounds within a building, as opposed to like a hardwood floor. I think you'll my guess is you'll see some of that as well. And since the dogs are kind of closer to the ground than they are to the top of the fence, I'm somewhat assured that, again, without doing an official study on it, I don't know that it's going to be all that problematic. But here's the other thing, I guess, to kind of mention too. It's a little bit of an irregular space, which is, I guess, kind of speaks also for breaking up sound waves and such, which is in essence what sound is. There are like little, in fact, if I could share my screen.
Yeah, I can.
Well, in fact, David, part of the see, let me know when you can see this.
There are breaks between the three buildings there.
Can you see the screen now?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, good. So here's basically Dane out here. Here's our sidewalk. Here's our recess kind of park area. Here's the fence that is what shows up in the foreground of that rendering. These are the three play yards. But you've also got an uneven, this building is taller than this building. Then there's also like these outlets here, these kind of channeled open space areas. I think if I was going to do an amphitheater design, for instance, and I wanted to put my band back here and I wanted my audience to hear it, I don't think I would lay it out like this. I don't think this gives you, the amplification of sound is not necessarily going to be directed towards the street. I think our buildings are kind of, I think by the time the noise level gets, you got to pass a 20, 25-foot wall here, and this one's another 20 or so over here. I think all of a sudden we're pushing our sound maybe up as opposed to, vertically as opposed to horizontally. And again, that's
okay.
That's not necessarily on a acoustician's perspective, but I think
Sure.
that's my professional, just seat of the
Sure.
pants kind of a feel to it.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thanks,
Mhm.
thanks, Tom. Okay, let's see. I wanted to just talk a little bit or ask just a couple questions on the standards. I think you guys have sort of covered this, but yeah, in particular, the special exception standards that I need to follow here is, you know, would this project cause undue adverse impact for neighboring properties? And would the project cause an impairment or a substantial impairment of property value? I'd like to hear your response to that, particularly when you're considering the homes across the street.
You're looking for my opinion, David?
Anyone on the applicant team,
Oh.
anyone can field that.
I was just trying to see if I had a visual of the existing parcel as it sits. It's just gonna take me a minute to find it.
I can pull it up if you'd like. I've got it here.
David, it's part of in my staff report. It shows that a Google Street View image. That might be the easiest.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think I've got it already, Trey. All right,
Okay,
pull
cool.
this up here for everyone. Sorry, I have to stop your sharing, Tom. I'll pull
Sure,
this up.
sure.
Yeah, so this is the street view here. Is this what you're looking to show, Tom?
That's it. Yeah, thank you.
Yep. And were you gonna use this visual to respond
Well,
to the?
The detriment to the neighborhood, I don't really know the hours of, obviously we've got 4220 to, as an adjacent parcel. Obviously, there's no harm and detriment to that. Salvation Army doesn't feel that it's a detriment. Otherwise, they would not have signed the lease for the property. Across the street, do we have projects under, at the time, actually, this project's been kind of sitting since last October, November. At the time, it didn't seem like there was a lot of activity, a lot of renovations. There was a housing project across the street that you just kind of panned on. But, I guess my opinion on this whole thing, David, I don't want to be biased on it, but Hamilton County's created this dog shelter, and they picked this location, and that wasn't really anything to do with us. It was pre-selected, and yet I think the process to which Ray and Carolyn have clearly laid out that these play yards they're not just an accessory use, although zoning certainly calls it that as a conditional use. But to me, these seem like they're rather a kind of a required piece to the puzzle. I know, when I've boarded my dog on occasions for a week at a time, he comes back with like a PTSD kind of a syndrome. That is basically on account of they're caged and they're not really geared to be that way. Anyway, so I guess my point is, I think the detriment to the neighborhood, I think we need to go back further and say, if this wasn't really intended from the get-go, to have a supplemental exercise yard, which I think should be fundamental to these projects. And I guess my question is, why did we pick this site in the first place?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Ray just got dropped. I don't know if he's waiting to get access, who's controlling that, but he's not on the call anymore. He just texted me.
Okay, I'm controlling it. Does he say that he's waiting? Because I don't have anyone in my waiting room right now.
He says it's okay. He said he's trying to get it back in. It's blocked somehow.
Okay, it's blocked.
Yeah.
Oh, strange.
Here, let me see if I can work out what's going on.
Okay. I can try to resend him an invite if that'll help. It's just bear with us, everybody. Though. Just try and get Ray back in here.
Did you say you're sending him another link? Should I tell him to check?
I'm gonna resend the link, but the one that he used to get in is
Same
is,
one?
I think, the same one. So if he hasn't tried that yet, he should certainly do that. It should be open. Folks can sort of join whenever they'd like, and usually I'll get an alert here that they're in the waiting room. There we go. There it is.
Is he in?
Okay. He's coming in now.
Gotcha, okay.
Great.
Welcome back,
Hey,
Ray.
Happy to be back. I did do a little MacGyvering there.
All right. I think Tom had just posed sort of a rhetorical question, if I was following that correctly. Why choose this space?
Well, we're talking about
but-
detriment to the neighborhood. I think is what we were.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a bit of the challenge, we have is that, the Hamilton County decided to use this building as a secondary animal shelter and have now put us in a place where, as we all know from the 4210 Dane hearing, we are prohibited from seeing animals go out into the back of the space behind that building. And so when you look at the Humane Society and their ability to take care of these animals appropriately, where do they go is the question I would ask as the Benny Fund. And the only option available to them is this space. And we have worked very candidly over 2 years on this, getting a lease with the Salvation Army to get access to this land, and then putting this plan together and bringing together the contractors to do this work, only to then find out that we were hindered by that because 4210 hadn't gone through the appropriate practices for zoning and permitting yet. So I am here as a concerned citizen of the city of Cincinnati that we need appropriate space to take care of our animals. And part of that is that we need outdoor space at our shelter facilities to do so. And when I look at what we're doing here, I think it actually improves this vacant lot from what it is today. And I truthfully believe that it will absolutely not hinder our community or our neighbors next door. And that I candidly feel really good that the Humane Society is going to be very conscious of those neighbors and making sure that they're being good stewards. Back on point. If not this, then 155 dogs.
Breaking up.
Sorry,
you're breaking up just a little bit. I think it might be a connectivity issue over there. It's kind of going in and out. I got
I had to
almost all of what you said there. I was just going to encourage you, if you do drop off again, maybe try signing on your cellular network or on your cell phone. That one.
I had to come onto this network to get off of my clean network.
Oh, okay.
So this wasn't the network I was on. I've had to come over because it wouldn't let me through the site the other way. But in short, yeah, I think it is this space. Otherwise, it's 140 dogs being individually walked throughout the neighborhood. So,
gotcha. Okay. All right.
Take your pick.
Thanks for that. Mr. Brogan,
I was just
going
to
you wanted to get in there. I know you're the Hamilton County rep.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, a couple blocks away, I think I forget what it's called, the apartment complex that's relatively new, a few blocks away. There's a dog run in part of it. It was built as part of the apartment complex. I would say what we're suggesting here isn't substantially different from what exists 2 blocks away as part of a residential community across the street from houses, with much less buffer between the street and what we're proposing here.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I wouldn't say what we're proposing is particularly inconsistent with the neighborhood.
Okay. And you're talking about on Knowlton, I believe, on.
Is it the American Can? That's not American Can. Is it American Can building?
Here, I'll
blocks
my
away.
screen. I'm pretty sure this is it. You're referring to this little.
Yeah, the little
space
dog
for-
run. People aren't there. Yeah.
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 Okay. All right. Anything else from the applicants here? Anyone else on the applicant team that wants to say something before we turn it over to any public comment and hear from Trey? Okay. Thanks, everyone. Sorry.
Well, this is just Mike Betaclet. I just wanted to say nothing to add other than Salvation Army supports the improvements.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. All right, let's move to the public. I think we'll start with Elena and Steve. If you all are ready and want to provide any additional comments to the discussion here, and then Mr. Inglis, I will go to you next if you're still with us.
By the way, thank you for having us today to join this discussion. We have been dealing with the construction that occurred for the last approval for the zoning at 4110 Dane and dealt with several neighborhood disturbances through the process, which I know Carolyn was apologizing for earlier about how they couldn't really be neighborly at all times. And so I'm just here as a concerned citizen to try to ask the right questions to help the neighborhood get some kind of voice and also some answers. So I was at the community council meeting where they pitched what times it would occur. And from what I'm understanding today, it said it would occur from 9 to 6. Is that correct? Okay. And then our city, David, this is more a question for you. We typically have a 250 square foot limit. Is there a reason for that? Because I know this permit is asking to exceed that limit. And is there an excess of how many dogs can be in that 200 square foot, 50 square foot space in current code?
Let me toss that over to, because I don't want to provide any testimony, I'm not sure, but let me toss that over to Trey, who, if he does have an idea, could answer that. So why the 2,500 square foot limit, and is there a max capacity for those spaces?
Right. Well, often conditional uses, I agree with your observation and Ray's, first of all, that there is kind of overlap between those two standards. There are two conditional uses necessary here. One has to do with the delimitation of the size area, as David is well aware, but for the rest of you, conditional uses are sometimes a limitation in the zoning code where it's some sort of threshold for square footage or other numeric, some kind of a threshold in which at a certain point, it just wants to assess at a certain point, are there any adverse effects to that? So, and that's very true for some of the most common things you see in our residential districts, for example, churches, schools, and country clubs and other clubs of that sort all require conditional use approval, for example, in single family districts. And much of the time it's benign, but if you had, for example, I'm just trying to explain to everybody how conditional use just works in general. If, let's suppose, a country club wanted to put a lit up driving range that was going to be open until 10 o'clock at night, somebody's a neighbor, you could see how they would be like, no, I don't want it to be like a Walmart parking lot right outside our back patio. So there, that makes common sense in that context of how something, even like a country club or a school or a church might have some adverse effects. As far as the 2,500 square feet, the way it's written in the code, it's the overall area. But I would point out that the pens themselves are, it's not 4,600 square feet. The pens themselves are actually within the 2,500 foot. It's just that they have walkways around the perimeter of them and passing in between each one of those three pens. So, the way the code's written, it says outside area. But if it's discussing where the dogs will be per se within the actual pens, that does not, I don't think it even exceeds the 2,500 square feet, let alone 4,600. But the way the code's written, it's two separate sections of the code. One, the outdoor area, 2,500 square feet. The second has to do with pens and runs and such.
Okay.
So if you kind of synthesize those together, I'm just trying to explain that the actual run areas look to be less than 2,500 square feet total, but the perimeter of the entire area is about 4,600 square feet.
Okay.
Gotcha. Trey, is it safe to assume that the intent of limiting it to 2,500 square feet most likely was to reduce adverse impacts on neighboring properties?
That typically is what is when you have other conditional uses too. It's there are even thresholds for some businesses. You can't be over 10,000 square feet or whatnot. It's to simply in those cases it's like limit the size of certain businesses in a pedestrian zoning district, for example, pedestrian commercial district. So here I agree. Yes, it would be a threshold to make sure that at that limit, at that 2,500 square foot limit, that it's been well designed, well configured, and it's tried to minimize adverse effects.
Thanks.
Thank you. So the things that I wrote down that I just was going to try to cover really quickly, because I have to get to a farmer's market, is that I was curious if there's a decibel rating based on the fact that there would be 20 dogs in the approval of this. I know my husband and I are for this approval. We are not against it currently. We are just concerned about reading about the canine turf. It sounds like it's excessively hot is typically what becomes an issue for the dogs. And then is there some type of like covering over the roof areas that you'll be putting in to make sure that the dog's paws aren't getting burned? Because I already know they're already dealing with paw stuff. And then it says that there can be environmental impacts because it's typically a plastic. How will the space be left when the lease ends? Because all of us know that this wasn't really the ideal county approval of a building without an exterior space. Those were 2 points that I had, and I have 2 more. Sorry. When we
That's fine. Let me, before the applicants respond to some of the latter questions there is there will still be the community noise regulations that are in the municipal code, and for MG districts, Sunday through Wednesday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. is 75 decibels.
Okay.
And I think that's the only time frame that would apply here based on the applicant's representations. Looks like Thursday is 75 and Friday and Saturday it's also 75. So it's consistently 75 during any time that they're proposing to use the outdoor space.
Okay.
And I'll let the applicants respond if they would like to her other questions.
I did want to just clarify one thing, David. While there are the decibel sections listed that David was citing in the municipal code, but they are not within the zoning code. I just wanted to note that it's a different enforcement. So generally, when there's a noise situation getting out of hand, like an outdoor area for a bar or something like that, it would be a police enforced matter. It is not a zoning matter, but it is codified. So
It is a regulation though they will have to follow. Did the applicants want to respond to the turf and roof question?
Sure. I install yards all the way down into Naples, Florida. And so the turf we use specifically is designed for this, and it does stay actually cooler than what you see in many of the artificial turf yards you see. It's specifically intended for this type of use. In addition, though, yes, there's 2 things. One is hosing down the turf dramatically reduces temperature on it all the time. And so for us, being able to just literally spray the turf occasionally between groups and all absolutely helps it keep it really cool. In the event that we ever do want to go to a shade screen or something to that effect, it would mean us coming back, obviously, for zoning additions or changes to that area. But I can tell you personally, like, especially this time of year, today's a perfect example, right? We're not going to have any turf issues with heat. And then obviously in the summertime, typically what we've always done is we just water down. Much like you see if you're going to FC Cincinnati game as a good example, right? They hose the turf down at halftime. We do the same thing. And that's really how we mediate the heat issue. So that's really the big issue there for us.
And then the other question, how will the space be left after you guys are done with your lease? Do you have an agreement with Mike to like beautify it with sod down or something to give this space back to the community in a better way than maybe it currently is today? Because
so it really resides, and if Mike can answer, he might be able to, but it will really reside with the Salvation Army. So our lease with them says we will return to the space however they wish, meaning either remove everything from it so that it's back to where it is today, or potentially leave it there if they see use for it in other ways, if they want to use any components of it. My answer to you is, as of today, that isn't decided, right? But it is at, honestly, the decision point of the Salvation Army, and then we will do whatever they want us to do to that space.
Okay. I was pitched it a little different at the Northside Community Council meeting, where it sounded like this space would stay like this as long as the lease was effective, and then it would not be there anymore after it was ending. So
that's typically true, right? So the way it is that we would remove it all and it would be put back to the way it was. So that is essentially how it's structured in the lease. But the Salvation Army, if they saw value in what's sitting on the property, they certainly could say, no, we want to keep this fence, right? Like if they like the privacy fence as an example, they may want to not have us tear that down. And I certainly wouldn't if that's the way they wanted it and everyone was good with that.
Yeah, I think, Ray, you have it, you said it perfectly, and that's how it's set up. And, there's no decisions or knowledge of what, might do at this point, so.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's the Salvation Army's lot to do with what they want. So unfortunately, or fortunately, as the case may be, we don't have control or say over that.
Okay. And then if there was over 20 dogs, is that a police matter as well, or is that a zoning issue?
That would be a zoning issue, depending on what the conditions and the ultimate decision are, if this is approved.
Okay. As far as what we had concerns about, I mean, we had 16 dogs in the back that we asked the back lot to no longer house dogs or have play yards because of the amount of sound that was coming from it. So as a concerned citizen of 16 dogs being really loud, and I know that this was a period from 9 to 11 when they were waiting for food back inside was why it was louder. I don't know if that's going to happen again because they're going to be waiting on food and needing to go back inside. I'm sure that's a thing that goes around the clock, but I do have concerns for the neighbors that are across the street, but I expect the city to respond to this on the best interest of what the neighborhood needs. And I know that the dogs need outdoor space and not just volunteer dog walkers. So I thank you for your time and appreciate you letting us ask a couple questions.
Elena, to address your concern though, the 16 dogs that you're talking about was when we didn't have the kennel situation that we have now after the renovation. So the dogs were temporarily housed out there while staff were cleaning. So they were unattended and they were just being used. It wasn't a big yard. They were individual kennels that animals were left while we were cleaning. That is not intended to happen because of the new renovations. So the use on the new property on the Salvation Army side would just be similar to when we had that small play yard back there. So there'd be no dogs just unattended, waiting for food, waiting for attention. They will only be out there after all that's happened, and they're out there for enrichment and then for meet and greets. But
yeah, our experience was just that they were not quiet. So that's whether play yard or not. And I want to attest that that is the way that it felt from over here. So it was impossible to work when they're left alone. And I know you plan to have somebody in those cages, and at times in the play yard, it was louder as well. So I'm hoping for the best for the community and for the dogs, and it's not my decision. I just am here to speak my truth. So thank you so much for everything you all are doing.
Elena, I know you have to run, but I want to clarify two things real quick. Were you suggesting earlier that the representations at the community council meeting are not consistent in terms of the timing that you've heard here today?
I thought I heard from 9 to 5 was going to be the latest because they said that they would be wrapping. So that was my memory, but
okay, understood.
That's what I had in notes, but I understand that they need an extra hour, and I'm not opposed to that.
Okay, that was going to be my second question. Based on the representations you've heard today, that we've all heard, 9 to 6, you and your husband are not opposed to this project. Okay, all right. Well, thank you again for being here, and feel free to jump off if you need to get to another place.
Thank you so much. Best of luck to you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Elena.
All right. Okay, Mr. Inglis. Hope I'm saying that right.
Yep. Yeah, you are.
Okay. Yeah, would you like to add anything?
Sure, I can speak just briefly on the points I made in my written statement, which I guess I would maybe defer folks to because there's a little more thought out than probably what I can say just verbally. But I think in that I raised 3 issues. The first of which was the fact that on the west side of the yard, what's proposed is an opaque fence because of the residential use across the street. However, there's residential uses to the north as well, even though they're in a MG district, and that's where my house is. And I noticed on the site plan that there's just a chain link fence, and that I was urging staff to consider enforcing or suggesting a opaque fence there as well for the acoustics, because there is a side yard for the Salvation Army in which the sound would theoretically bleed north into and be more audible to those residences, those houses that are to the north. The second thing was about the kind of upkeep and maintenance and the pocket park. The two comments I made was about there are significant hours during the day when there won't be personnel from the shelter who will be directly adjacent and will be present, coming in and out of that gate onto Dane Avenue to kind of observe or monitor and kind of keep track of what's happening in that pocket park. And it was just a question of, does the city suggest any kind of signage or way to better kind of make sure that that becomes a benefit for the neighborhood and it isn't left to its own devices. There's a similar pocket park down on Mad Anthony and Knowlton, I believe, at the Ludlow Monument, I think it's called. And the other night I was out for a walk at about 8 o'clock, and there were folks who were sitting at those benches that were there, not exactly doing the most above board activities. And if there's there's children in the neighborhood adjacent to the shelter there, I have young children, and I just want to make sure that we're setting up a space, an outdoor space that the public can use and is for the highest and best good of the neighborhood. So that's all I wanted to say.
Mr. Inglis, just so I'm on your first question there, I just want to make sure I understand the concern. Are you talking about, as I share my screen here, are you talking about this area here?
Yes,
where
that's
the sound
correct.
could get towards?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, right through that canyon. And right now there's vegetation in there, but I don't know if someday soon they'll come in and kind of clear that all out for that side yard. But yeah, it's about that. That's what I was talking about. Yep.
Okay.
Can I just share something from? Am I on mute? Oh, sorry. Can I share something from a noise perspective for you? Okay. So we have the Coleraine shelter has been in operation for 60 years. We conduct the same level of activity in this shelter that we're proposing over at Dane. The difference is, as I mentioned earlier when I was sharing some thoughts, the noisiest part of an animal shelter is actually the kenneling. It's not the yards, it's not the activity that's happening out there, it's the kenneling. And there's a very significant difference between the Dane shelter and the Coleraine shelter. The Coleraine shelter has 100 kennels that actually have indoor-outdoor access. So there are dogs that have access to the outside all the time. And that's where most of the noise is coming from, as opposed to what's happening in the yards. At the Dane facility, there's no indoor-outdoor shelter. There's no indoor-outdoor kennels, so all the dogs are completely contained inside. So that definitely makes a big difference. That said, even though there's more noise here than there ever would be at Dane, we've been here for 5 years and we have not had a neighbor complaint about noise. And we've been running play groups for 3 years. In addition to the just noise of a shelter with having 100 kennels with outside access, we've never had a noise complaint.
And you do have Weber Place. Is that the road that's behind you? That's directly behind you, I want to say, at the Coleraine shelter. But there is a residential street directly at the back of that shelter with homes that their backyards but right up to the shelter parking lot.
Yeah, it's in a residential neighborhood a mile away from the Dane location. Same neighborhood, Coleraine, or I'm sorry, same neighborhood, north side.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah, this is kind of an overhead view.
Yeah, so you have those residences. That's literally the back parking lot, and those are all right on the street there, play yards.
I'm assuming this is the play yard here. And are these the shelters that have the indoor-outdoor?
Yes.
Yep, all those. So yes, all those areas, the far right, everywhere where you see those walkways, that's where you have the 100 kennels on both sides. There's 20 in each run.
Okay.
That have outdoor access. So those 4 strips that you see all have 20 kennels with outdoor access. We're doing play groups where you showed the
shade screens.
The little shade sails. and that big tree. And then we also have a play group. We have a play yard out in the front now on the very left side of the screen. I don't think you can see it yet.
Corner.
Right, that corner where you see that grassy area, we have a big play yard there now as well. So we have 7 play yards at Coleraine currently.
I think Mr. Inglis also had some potential concerns about that area in front there.
Yeah, I think
the
he
public
called
gathering
it
space.
in his letter, and rightfully so. Do we want to reduce the number of benches or maybe not have benches at all? And I don't think Carolyn can speak from her perspective, but I'm certainly fine with us removing benches and just leaving it being landscaped and hardscaped. If we feel that the benches are going to, bring in folks that we don't want, loitering in the space. Yeah.
It wasn't a request of ours, so if that solved, if that addressed a concern, we wouldn't, it would be fine from the shelter perspective.
Yeah, agreed.
And
Mr. Inglis,
David, I
anything
mean,
else?
maybe it's a question to you too. Like if they wanted to come back later and put benches in, would that be something they'd have to do with an amendment to this application, or are the benches kind of secondary?
Yeah, I might defer to Trey on this. I think that I don't think there'd be anything preventing them from putting benches out there from a zoning perspective, but I would want to ask Trey to confirm that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, we don't, somebody can put,
It's private property, right? So
yeah, bench isn't considered a structure, so there are no locational rules about that whatsoever. So, someone could put a bench in the middle of their front yard and,
Correct me if
I
I'm
also I was also going to say quickly that I think the inverse is true as well. If this does become a hotbed for unwanted behavior, they can always take those out. I would assume that since the animal care in Hamilton County would not want bad behavior to be ongoing out there, it wouldn't be good for the shelter. And so I don't know if Carolyn, if you can sort of speaking for you there a little bit, but
No, I was going to say, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that was part of our original proposal or request. I thought that was a modification that we made on the request of the city to make that more of a park-like setting and be able to do some things, add some elements to make it more usable for the residents of the community, not specifically for the shelter.
Trey or Ray, are you aware of those conversations? That's the first I'm hearing of it.
No, I haven't had any conversations of that nature with Ray at all. Just to meet the substance of my conversations with Tom and with Ray have been to provide that if the buffer yard was not going to be the full required buffer yard, that to really exceed the landscaping requirements as far as a really robust vegetation to act as both a visual and sonic screen. And they have done that.
Okay, because initially I think the fence was closer to the street and we needed to push it back to create that buffer. So I guess because of that, as a way to address just having that bigger space, Ray, you decided to put the benches in.
Yeah.
Versus more vegetation. So either way would be fine from a shelter perspective.
Okay.
That's all correct.
Mr. Inglis, is there anything else you wanted to
I don't want to interject, or I mean, I'll speak on my own part later, but I did speak with, after receiving, Mr. Inglis, I didn't have time to amend my staff report or anything because I only received your comments 2 days ago, and I had other things I had to do yesterday and so on. I did speak with Mr. Campagna, though, and he indicates that it should be no problem as long as the county is amenable to it, and as long as Salvation Army is fine with it. There could certainly be it would only be one section of 8-foot, 6-foot tall vinyl fence on the south end of that sort of green alley that you sort of pointed to. That runs north. I mean, they could easily put one more panel of fence right there, and it would be a very effective screen. So
great. That'd be wonderful.
I think if if that's part of David's, Mr. Sturkey's condition here, in any conditions he has, I'm just trying to play, you know, intermediary here in the sense that I had that conversation earlier with, early this morning, with Ray, you know, in exchange with him, and, that should not present a problem. So that could easily be a requirement. And then for the permit to get approved, Mr. Malloy would just change the site plan slightly to show a privacy fence across that section. Does that make sense to you, Mr. Inglis?
It does, yep. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Sorry, that
Let
was
me-
one of
let
your
me-
one of your
Let me
issues.
ask real quick since the animal care and Mr. Campagna, is that something that you all would consider doing to the design?
Yeah, we can. I have to just go back and revisit. There's already a fence there today, so we'll just have to, with the property owner, make sure they're good with what we do. I don't know whether we would replace that fence or whether we would put a privacy fence up against that fence. But yeah, I think it's certainly achievable.
Okay. All right, thanks. And thanks, Mr. Inglis, for your written correspondence and your testimony here today. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Trey. Trey, we are coming up on the 4 o'clock hour here. I know that's you know, getting kind of late in the day, so just going to be respectful of everyone's time and try and wrap this up by 4, knowing that I'm going to give the final remarks to Cincinnati Animal Care and the applicants here.
Of course, sure.
Thanks.
This is very much pun intended. This project is long in the tooth. Gotten to know and work with Ray here during this time. He's kind of served in that capacity because we've had a different architecture team for the Champlin architects for the and several county reps, people from county administration for the approval and hearing for the principal building itself that the county owns. And so we've had a lot of people involved in this. And so I just, for my part, I want to thank everybody for, you know, their participation, their response to requests of zoning. When the main building was done, it worked out well for both the building code and the zoning code to have all the HEPA filters for both the air filtration and also minimization of sound and other things that were done there. And we worked in similar fashion on this, as Ms. Evans pointed out. You start out initially with maybe a concept of a fence further there, and just expanded the buffer yard area. I think that originally there was an attempt to comply just with the section in 1419, David, specific to that particular, you know, the additional development regulation specifically to the animal services. Again, they were not aware of the buffer yard requirement as well. Once we put that in there and really made the trees more robust, I think I mean, to me, a picture paints 1,000 words sometimes. I've been in many of these hearings, dozens and dozens of them over the years. And I think that the you know, the rendering that they did showing the different, 2 different species of trees. There's arborvitaes that if they're just emerald arborvitaes, they should get 12 to, they show as 8 feet right now, but they should get 12 to 15 feet. If they're green giant arborvitaes, they could get up to 25 feet in height. I'm not sure of the specific species, but either the way they're, David, upon maturity, those trees should be 15 to 25 feet in height in that range, which is really pretty effective, pretty effective screen. There are also Leland cypress trees that were planted in there. And for accent trees, they have thornless and podless honey locusts that should be, you know, attractive deciduous trees there. So they really did try to do more than just the minimum here. So like I said, when the benches, I think, could go either way. I personally thought it was a nice amenity for the neighborhood, but I certainly can see to Mr. Inglis's point. I suppose if these are bolted down like benches typically are, if it presents a problem and there's vagrancy that the police can't handle or something, they could simply remove the benches. Or if you feel that it is too much temptation for vagrancy, David, Mr. Campagna said we can simply take them out of the drawing for the permitting. And, you know, some things can be fixed between now and permitting, depending upon David's final determination here. So both that fence that we just talked about blocking off from the north from Ellis, and also the benches, if those are issues that seems like they can be remedied rather easily, is what I'm getting at. It seems a very easily addressed. Both of those issues that Mr. Inglis brought up, I think, are fairly easily addressed. I also have noted over the years, and I'm sure David has too, but many of the times we have a site like this, simply having people around is the greatest deterrent for things like vagrancy and crime and so on. Just simply having people coming and going around there really is the single biggest deterrent. I hear that as feedback from police and so on for many hearings we've had for fencing, and I know David's presided over some of these hearings, but when somebody needs extra tall fence around a thing or something, it's the number one deterrent is being able to see there and having a lot of people around. Which it sounds like this will, and the fact that it's across from a residential neighborhood, I think that I don't want to say that neighbors are the best police possible, but really they are. If something's problematic, I would simply ask people, if they do put the benches in and there's a problem, please try to address that to the county, and if necessary, the police. That's the appropriate course of action for that. Beyond that, I feel that this is appropriately designed and configured. It is impossible, and it makes sense to the rotational aspect that they've discussed with the dogs and some of the kind of ciphering you did there, David, with the 140 dogs, 20 at a time. That's 7 periods of of 20 minutes or 30 minutes per day. But in order to have those 3 separate runs, and then the areas between them for adequate walking to and fro, you inherently have a reduced buffer yard from the 35 feet required. I do want to point out that the distance does comply with the 1419 section, David. Part of 141905, if you'll note, it requires a 50-foot distance from the district boundary line to the animal use. This does comply with that because the district boundary line is often the middle of the street, whereas the buffer yard starts at the property line. I hope it's an important distinction because they fully meet the 141905 50-foot requirement from the district boundary line to the beginning of the outdoor animal area. So that is fully compliant with that. It's just that you have a type D buffer for an MG to a residential zoning district, which then comes from the property line. So I think it's very important to make that distinction, especially for David, because it is a legal distinction here that they do meet the additional development regulations distance for animal care, exterior animal care areas, but the buffer yard area could not be met because it starts at the property line. That's 35 feet. My basic view on this, and working
Trey, do you
with
know what's the distance from the 6-foot fence to
the property line?
Yeah.
That's
to the residential district.
Oh, all the way. You'd have to add another. Well, it's a total of 50 feet exactly. I can tell you that the distance from where that fence starts, okay, the vinyl privacy fence to the district boundary is exactly 50 feet. That's in total compliance with 141905, which requires a 50-foot distance.
And the reason it's not in compliance with 142313, the 35-foot requirement.
Yes, it's because the buffer yard has to start. You can't use the public right of way as your buffer yard, or some places that had a really wide road with two lanes or something in each direction. You'd have to have no buffer yard at all, which makes no sense. So the buffer yard starts at the property line, and it's a 35-foot one, and that's for the MG to the residential zoning district. It's a buffer yard type D, which starts at the property line, and they could not meet the full 35. They met 22 feet 8 inches, thus requiring a special exception of 12 feet 4 inches.
Okay.
So you need a special exception from the buffer yard, but you have complied with 141905 in the required distance from the district boundary. sorry to get so specific in the weeds there, but they are two distinct different standards for it. One's being met, and one they're asking for a special exception, and they're attempting to offset it by creating this sort of like pocket park environment, and they're exceeding the landscaping requirements.
Okay.
Which in my opinion will also help soften any noise concerns, because you're going to have arborvitae and Leyland cypress are both very dense. You know how pine trees, as they get tall, they get all, separated. So these are very dense, dense evergreens. So to the extent that a plant is possible of absorbing or deflecting sound, this is it.
Okay.
Same
Thanks,
thing
Trey.
for visual screen. Same thing for visual screening.
Appreciate your work on the staff report and your testimony here today.
Thank
All
you very
right,
much.
we are going to turn it over to the applicants here, since the animal care, anyone on the involved with this project for any remarks in response to Trey's comments or members of the public, or in closing or otherwise before we adjourn.
I'll keep it really quick. Obviously, appreciate Trey's comments and what we're trying to do there. And the only other comment I would make is very much so our goal, right, is to be here temporarily. This is not supposed to be a 20-year play yard project. Hopefully Hamilton County will secure property for a brand new animal shelter, and we will get construction of that underway as soon as possible. With all hope and intent that, 5, worst case, 7 years from now, we are not operating at 4210 Dane anymore. So I know that doesn't necessarily help the current residents if you're trying to sell your home today or tomorrow, but hopefully all of us do not have dogs from Hamilton County Animal Shelter being housed on Dane Avenue 10 years from now for sure. And thanks for the time.
Okay. Anyone else from you, Carolyn?
Thank you, Ray. I was going to say exactly the same thing. In fact, while we've been on this call, I've gotten communication from our title agent. We should know by the end of the day when we're closing on the property that we expect to be the successor to this one.
That sounds like sooner than, sooner than I've been anticipating or hearing from some of these meetings. Are you saying that you're close to acquiring another property?
We are.
Oh, okay. So this could be less than a few years.
I'm going to say 5.
Yeah, let's be safe.
I'm not going to try and pin you down on that, but I mean, if everything goes smoothly, you're saying this.
I'm a little more optimistic than Ray is on that.
Yeah, exactly. So,
okay.
Close to
5 to 7, I think, is a really good conservative number.
Greg, did you want to say something? I have a couple of remarks, but I want you to have an opportunity.
Super fast. In addition to this just being a great project for the dogs, obviously, and an enhancement to the community, we've presented this in many places around town. We have in events within Northside. We've already secured approximately 500 approval signatures, letters, or support signatures in a petition as we presented this exact project. And we also have letters of support from the Northside Business Association and the Northside Community Council for this exact project as well. So all wonderful questions and legitimate questions, but there's a lot of wide-ranging support for this.
Thanks, Mr. Haskett.
Yeah, and I just wanted to thank everyone again for your time and thank the zoning, commission for allowing us the opportunity to speak on the importance of this project from an animal shelter perspective. As we responsibly, aim to provide humane care for the county's animals. I think this solution does so in a way that not only does provide that much needed enrichment for the dogs in our care, but it also is improving the space and minimizing the overall impact of having dogs in the neighborhood by concentrating our activities into this yard versus having dogs walking through the neighborhood. So I think it achieves both purposes, and we appreciate the opportunity to share that perspective with you. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll leave it at that. I really appreciate everyone's time today and their testimony. I have a lot of information to review here, so I'm not going to make a decision right now. I want to review all the evidence read through all the letters and make sure that I consider everything before making a formal decision. When I do make that formal decision, I'll put it into writing. And then as soon as I do that, I put it into a PDF and I'll email it to everybody in the hearing here. So you all have a copy of that decision really just moments after it's complete. Let's see, is there any questions about the process? I can't, now that the hearing is closed, I can't take any more additional evidence or testimony. So often folks will think of something they wish they would have said, and I know that can be frustrating, but I can't consider any new evidence or testimony after this. If you have procedural questions or you just want an update on where I'm at with the decision or when it's coming, please feel free to reach out to me with those questions. It typically takes about 2 weeks, so hopefully it's that or under. And yeah, I think that's it. Unless there's any other questions now, I think we'll wrap it up.
I did want to quickly, very quickly, David, point out that I see that Tom's dropped off the call here. So Ray and Carolyn and John, if there are any kind of substantive changes to, for example, the site plan as a result of what David's decision or conditions of approval are, such as that privacy fence that we addressed with Mr. Inglis, or the benches or anything else like that, please make note that Tom would promptly include those in a revision for the permit, since you're in a permit process right now,
Sure.
so that enables me to, as quickly as possible, assuming that David approves this, if those conditions affect the site plan, it needs to be drawn appropriate on there. So as soon as the decision's issued, if that is the case, he should initiate the revision process. I'm just saying this because he's not on the hearing anymore, but just get him on that immediately, because he'll need to correct, modify the drawings, so that I can approve the permit. That's all I have to say.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. We'll leave it at that. Thanks everyone again. Hope you have a wonderful day, and we are adjourned.
Thank you all.
Bye, everyone.